it is time for Shannon Reads Those Books, and the book this time is Tender is the Night. Hey everyone, it is Shannon, and I'm so excited to share that I finally finished Tender is the Night. It's not the biggest book in the world, but I had some challenges, so stick around and I will share those as well as my thoughts. Now, first up, Tender is the Night is written by F. Scott Fitzgerald. It was published in 1934, and it makes those books list for being number 28 on the Modern Library's Best 100 Novels list. It is my sixth book completed in this exploration so far, bringing me up to 42 of 438. I'm not actually trying to read them all, but it's an exploration, not a product. First off, why did I choose it? The reason why I picked Tender is the Night is that Kirsty from the Literary Sisters, hey Kirsty, and Vanessa Tabosky, hey Vanessa, decided to pick this book for a read-along in August. Yes, in August. I was so excited to be part of a read-along and to participate, and I bought the book with my birthday money in July, and I was so thrilled, and then I didn't finish the book. And then they extended it to September, and then I didn't finish the book. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? I read all the time. But this is the first Tree book I've read for years. So I did not realize how much I had adapted to reading via e-reader, and I actually had a heck of a time reading it, that it was a Tree book. And also because I wanted to I couldn't figure out what was going on, and there was lots of things that happened, and I had a huge reading block, and I'll leave a link below because I did a whole post on my reading blocks with this book and how I got through them, which was it was trying, but it was really important to get through them, and a lot of it was that I wanted to think about it more than I think about most books. I wanted to write down quotes, I wanted to write down words, I wanted to, think about what was going on in it, and in part because I didn't actually love it. It's interesting. When you love a book, it's just like, woohoo, this is awesome. It's like eating ice cream. It's like, this is great, and then you're done. But when it's something that you don't agree with or doesn't sit well, it kind of makes the process very different. And usually, I guess because most of the reading I do is just for enjoyment. It's not for school or anything. So if I don't like something, I just stop reading it. But with those books, this is the first time I've come across a book that I've been like, what the heck? And it's not that the writing was bad, it's just that I didn't agree. And so I didn't want to go ahead in the process without taking notes and without forming opinions and stuff like that. And I haven't had that with the book since I don't even know how long. I literally can't, probably high school. Because anything after that I read just for fun, and if I didn't like it, I stopped reading it. So that was very fascinating process. And so, okay, some of my questions. Did I understand it? Yeah, I understood it, and part of it is because I actually did take pretty substantial notes while reading the book. And it's weird because it's one of those things that it's like, the plot, and if this was a film, it'd be a drama, and so it's mostly about people and the relationships, and the what happens isn't, I don't know how, it's weird, it kind of doesn't feel like how what actually happens isn't that important, in a weird way. Well, it's the experiences and the journey that the characters go through that I would say is the most important, and it's centered on we were introduced to an ingenue type character called Rosemary, who's a actress and a Hollywood actress in the 20s, and she sort of becomes enamored with Dick, and also Dick and Nicole, who are a married couple, and they actually, it's funny, so many people like them as a couple that they actually call them Decole, which is hilarious because a lot of people do that now with couples, but I didn't realize that would be a thing in the 30s too, so that was really funny. 30s is when it was written, 20s was when it was mostly set. Anyway, so and a lot of it actually heavily centers on Dick, and he is not the most likable character, and actually neither is Rosemary, and neither is Nicole, and so that makes it, for me, a bit of a challenging read, but it's hard to stick with them sometimes, but I understood it. It took me a while to sort of get it, and I don't normally say stuff like this, but I think this is more of a guy book. And so I'll go right to, in terms of what it was about, it was really about their relationships, not only with each other, but themselves and their own personal journeys, and how it weighed on each other to, like, the different relationships they had and the power balances or imbalances in those relationships. So I would actually say power is a big theme in this book. Next up, so did I enjoy it? For me, it's weird. I actually enjoyed, and I will remember the book mostly for the experience of reading it with a different lens than other books. The fact that I took substantial notes and wrote down all of the 150 plus new words that I found from reading the book, and I plan on defining at least some of them, not all of them. I've done another post about the 99 ones that feel really important to actually learn what they mean or relearn some of them, or some I know that I think of them incorrectly, and some I know what they mean, but if I had to explain it, I'd just be using the same word. So enjoying it, not so much, because to be honest, the Rosemary's character, some of the things that she said, I'm just like, I don't think women think like that, and that made me think the author doesn't understand women, and then that made me sort of feel like, how could I think that about F. Scott Fitzgerald, like that he doesn't understand what he's writing about? That just felt like rude or something. And then, as I said, Dick's character isn't, like, there's a lot charming about him, and that's his thing, is that he really does charm people, and charm people without meaning to, at least initially. And but there are some of the things that he says that I don't think we wouldn't tolerate. If it was a current day book, I wouldn't tolerate it. There are things that are, I don't know if I'd go as far to say racist. There's almost every ism, and some of it is of the times, like right now we have a very different understanding and picture of mental health, whereas in the book it's very different, or in the early stages of understanding some personality issues and how to treat or help people. So things like that are challenging. And then, of course, being set, like in the 20s, the gender dynamics are very different. And even though Rosemary technically she's kind of independent because she's a Hollywood starlet, but she's very reliant on her mother. But it's more Dick and Nicole's relationship that's a very classic power imbalance, male-female relationship. But it is deeper than that. Like, there's a lot that they explore in that. But for me, I'm not that interested. But, I think the isms that and it's definitely homophobic, I think, at times. And, like, it kind of considers that a mental illness. They're kind of light on that, but I'm like, no, it's not. That's not what it is. So I think there's things like that are hard for, current day reading. We have a very different opinion, and as I would hope, understanding that this is life, and people are different, and that's okay. So, everyone's different. Anyway, so that made it hard to enjoy, although I did get a lot from the book in other ways. And that sort of leads into, was it what I expected? And again, I had no expectations of this book other than I thought I would really enjoy it because I loved The Great Gatsby, which is also by F. Scott Fitzgerald. So I was actually taken aback by the fact that I wasn't enjoying it. I was having a hard time reading it, but that was more due to being able to read comfortably, and also that I didn't like the characters and some of the characters and some of the things that they said. I was flabbergasted. There was a couple of lines that I'm like, I can't believe that was even said. But again, it's more of the times and is an ism, but it's just not tolerated. That's just not okay. So so that would make it hard for me to recommend it, but I think to each their own, and if you can try and take it for what it is, go for it. But if you're going to pick up one F. Scott Fitzgerald, I'd say start with The Great Gatsby. And then that leads me to, would I read more of this author's work? I guess so. I know that there's more. I've read The Great Gatsby. I don't know if I'll get to more. I don't know if I'd choose one of his other books over something else on the those books list. Probably not quite right now, but in the future I wouldn't not read his books, but it's not the first thing that I'm going to pick. And next up I have What Did I Learn? And to be honest, mostly I have over 100 words to learn, but what I learned was very much about the process. For me to be reading a tree book, I need to be sitting a certain way, and I wanted to have my notes with me, so I had to have my notebook with me. But one of the big things was that I ended up also needing to set aside the time. Once I had figured out a way to read comfortably, I actually set out a little schedule, and I made a little countdown thing for reading it, and I timed how long it took me to read, X amount of pages. I think it was 25 pages, while taking notes at a nice, leisurely pace, and to enjoy it. Not to just zoom through it, but to really enjoy it. And from that, I gauged out how I could finish reading it by the end of October, which I did. I actually finished a couple days early on the 28th. I wanted to be done before Halloween, because on Halloween I want to be Halloweening. So it was very exciting, and I put this up on my wall, and every day I would scratch off one more day, and it was really good. And it's kind of weird to feel like, that it took me, I set aside an hour to read 25 pages, and it only took me 45 minutes to read them with taking notes. But sometimes I wanted to get to the next chapter, get to the end of this part or book or whatever they're called, and sometimes I could read a bit less. And I wanted that flexibility, and to not feel to have any pressure on that, I had to set aside more time than I actually needed. And so for me, that was huge. The actually thinking of reading something on a more leisurely pace, as well as more intensive pace, because I took down lots of notes and lots of quotes, and as such, I actually really remember the book so much more, which is weird, because with this particular book, I didn't particularly take to it. There were lots of things that I found insightful, and then when I read the back, that one of the quotes is from Ernest Hemingway, who says, "It's amazing how excellent much of this is." And I was like, I don't know tons about Hemingway, but what I do know of him, I think, yeah, he would enjoy this book. I didn't, but he would. And I don't love to draw the gender line in the sand. I'm not saying that with this book, but considering how much of the focus is on the character of Dick and what he goes through, and I wouldn't say it's a midlife crisis, but he definitely changes a lot and struggles a lot and doesn't want to struggle and doesn't want to show a struggle and those kinds of things. And I think that that journey might appeal and to men more than to women, and I never say don't read something. I think anyone can read anything and get something from it, but I just think it's a little more slanted in that direction. And again, the female characters, Rosemary, I am, some of the things she said, I'm mystified. There was a weirdness, and sometimes I didn't understand the voice of because it's third person, but sometimes I felt like I was reading what Rosemary was thinking, but someone couldn't think that. It was self-referencing her own naivete, and I'm like, that doesn't even make sense. How could you know that you don't know something? So I found that, and that made me really hard. It made it really hard for me to get into it, especially at the beginning. I was not understanding it. I read a lot of the books I read are in the first person, so to read something that's from different perspectives, but I'm like, I feel like I just don't understand the third person. I'm like, that just can't be the case. I have read lots of books like that, but just recently I pretty much read first person books, and the last those books one was A Complicated Kindness, and that was first person too. Anyway, so it just means the wheels need to turn a bit differently. So anyway, as I said, did I enjoy it? Not terribly, but did I get a lot from it? Oh yeah. And a big I'm sorry to both Kirsty and Vanessa for not finishing on time, and I haven't watched your reviews yet because I didn't want to be super influenced by what other people said about the book, even though this is one book that I really do want to know what other people think and what other people think the themes are. Like, I really wish I had read it in school, because then I could find out and have discussions with people about it and be like, am I the only one that thinks this? Or what was he talking about with this? Or was that in reference to Nicole? Or, like those kinds of things. So it may, in that sense, although the time pressure thing for read-alongs doesn't really work for me, it makes me rethink wanting to do something that is more spirited in connecting with other people about a particular book. So there you go. There you have it. So I'm really looking forward to reading both Kirsty's and Vanessa's reviews. And actually, I'll link them below so you can check them out as well. I could probably go on for ages, but this is getting quite crazy long. So I'm going to leave it there. I finished. It's odd that it took me 3 months, but in fact, it actually only took me 10 days. 10 sittings. Time is a weird thing. But there you go. Tender's the Night. Woohoo! It feels like such a huge accomplishment. So there is that. Thank you so much for watching. Ooh.